This episode of After the Whistle contains profanity. Listener discretion advised. Please enjoy.
All right, Brian Gionta, what episode is it?
Got no clue, buddy. You know what? It's like, is it 30 yet? Are we in the 30s?
It's absolutely number 30.
Nailed it.
Man, listen, and it's going to be one of the best ones because I love Brian Gionta. Always have. And I miss Ribs. I love Ribs, but it's going to be great to have BG on, man. This is going to be a lot of fun. So hey, here's my morning coffee to you, BG. Welcome. I'm going to have a blast with you.
I appreciate it, bud. Love you too.
Ribs is having some knee surgery today. Is that a HIPAA violation? It might be a HIPAA violation.
Yeah, but you know what? He's in there for COVID, but he's getting his knee
all he wanted was a COVID test. He ends up having his knee scoped.
Yeah. Exactly right. Hey, by the way, before we start, I wear this hat every week, and I never plug my boy TJ Oshie's War Road. I love TJ Oshie with all my heart, and his stuff is great. His apparel line is awesome. So anybody out there, support TJ Oshie and War Road. It's awesome.
Yeah, he's
shameless plug.
That's not a shameless plug at all. But he talk about a guy who's really made a name for himself in the game. Where did he take off? Was it after he left St. Louis, or did he start to?
Took off at the Olympics.
Yeah, I was right.
Yeah, I think BG, you were there too, and right? Were you on?
Yeah, it was like he took off there for. I mean, he was big before, but that brought him to a whole new atmosphere. Yeah. Like it just, you're on that stage, and to do what he did, just unreal. Like it's insane. So I think he took off to a new era then. For sure.
Yeah,
he had a quote.
And he kept it up too. It wasn't just then. I mean, he kept up his prowess at his penalty shooting, at his I think at his creativity, and you know we talk about this with a lot of players. There are some players that have an uncanny ability to do things when they don't have the most talent. Right? You look at guys like Luc Robitaille, probably one of the worst skaters in the history of the game, but one of the best goal scorers, scored like 700 goals. But he was not the great, fluent, fast skater. Brilliant mind, smart. Yeah. Steve Larmer, not a fast, beautiful skater, not elegant, super, super smart, 400 and something goals. TJ Oshie is you know, he's not fast. He's not overly, bring you out of your seat electric with his speed or his dynamics, but he is so elusive and so damn smart. We've seen so many guys, and Brian, you've seen them too, guys with all the tools and no toolbox.
Yep. Well, they
never get anywhere.
Yeah, well, that's one of the biggest differences in guys that excel, I think. You go to the local rinks, especially now. You look at all these young kids. I'm coaching 16-year-olds. Those guys are almost more skilled, can do things with the puck that I could never do. Yeah. But get people into a game situation and trying to play away from the puck, trying to find opening, trying to get yourself in a position to score a goal. That's the stuff like you can't. I like analytics. I like all that stuff, but there's something to be said about how you can play this game and what kind of impact you can have for your teammates, for your line mates, all that stuff that goes
so true.
Uncalculated. It's just that's what takes you to that next level. It's the best league in the world. It's not easy to be there, and there's a ton of skilled players in this world. But it's Oshie. Like I agree, not dynamic skater, but great hands and great mind. Yeah,
and a great leader and a great person. Like one of the greatest people I've ever met in sports. So I'm glad you guys let us talk about TJ because I love him. So way to go, Petey.
Before we move off TJ Oshie, one quote I remember he made after I think what did he score? 4 of those shootout goals in the Olympics against Russia? Was it Gio? I can't remember how many it was. I think it was like 4. He went 4 times and scored all of them. And then he gets interviewed after, and the reporter asks him, and this is one thing I don't like is when you refer to, athletes as heroes. You know what I mean? Like heroes. He goes, they said to him, "What does it feel like to be an American hero?" And his response gives me goosebumps. His response, and it was so quick. He said, "I'm not a hero. The real heroes are wearing camo." You know what I mean? And that boom, and to me, that's what put TJ Oshie on my map. It wasn't even the shootout because I hate shootouts. Okay, but when I heard that, I'm just thinking to myself, man, like that's a character guy, proud American. Yeah. And, that was a quote that I'll never forget. And it actually made me think, like, let's stop calling athletes heroes. They're not heroes. They have maybe heroic moments in sports, but they're the furthest thing from heroes.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
They're admirable. Totally they're admirable, but they're not.
I think they're kind of warriors. They're like hockey players are warriors in a certain aspect. I mean, they what we have to go through every single day to play at that high level, to play with that kind of pressure, with the fierce physicality of what hockey is all about. I mean, only we know what it's all about. Used
to be about.
Wait. Can I get into it? I've never had JR on, I don't think, in this kind of setting. So we'll I don't know. I was only a couple years into the league. And playing for New Jersey, you're in Philly, JR. Like, obviously, American kid, grew up watching you and wanting to be like you. And when I tell you, I don't know if you'll remember this, but you tried to run me. It was in Philly. Tried to run me, and I run me from sidestepped you. You smashed your face against the glass, and you're bleeding, and you came out and you're like, "You little puke." I'm like, I'm in the NHL right now. I'm like, oh my God.
I gave myself a concussion. I think that I remember that, Brian. I really do. And
I would have died if you hit me. I sidestepped him and he called me a chicken shit and he's like, I'm chasing me around the rink. I'm like, I'm done. I'm like, Scotty Stevens, where are you? I need you as backup, buddy.
20 years later, I'll apologize, man. But I think I need to apologize to a glass a little bit more in your slowness and your quickness. So way to go.
There's no need to apologize, man. We played hard. That's what it's all about. And then your friends afterwards. That's what it is.
We did. Amen. That's right. That's what it's all about.
So I texted you, JR. I did a podcast with someone the other day. Gio just reminded me of it, thankfully, by when you said you tried to run him. Like way to go after the real small guys. No offense, Gio, but way to go.
I went after everybody.
So someone asked me. They said to ask JR next time he's on with you guys. Did he run somebody over? Like hammer somebody with a great hit, but there's no hitting in All-Star games. Didn't you? Who did you run over in the All-Star game? And it was very frowned upon.
3 times. So 3 times in 3 All-Star games.
3 different All-Star games?
3 different All-Star games, 3 different hits, all against the same player. It was Alexei Zhitnik. Remember? Remember him?
Yep. I played with Z.
Yeah, it was Z. Yep.
Why him? Why him?
Because he was there. And he's just like, it just was really weird. And the first time I hit him was one thing, but then the next year I was like, well, there he is again. I'm going to hit him again. And a number of years later, it happened again. But and then I got hit really hard from Keith Tkachuk in Minnesota. Obviously my good buddy, so it was more in play, but he lined me up right on the blue line and absolutely destroyed me. I wasn't expecting it, obviously, because it was All-Star game, but he gave me back a little bit of my own medicine. But, I wanted to do something a little bit different, and hitting in an All-Star game was definitely not expected. Whether it was frowned upon or not, but I'm always good. I'm always good for doing something a little bit out of the ordinary.
Gio, have you seen the video of JR going 4 for 4 in the accuracy?
Yeah, of course.
I mean,
that's insane.
That was all over Twitter not long ago, and somebody from a Philadelphia account tweeted that out. And then I direct messaged the guy and said, "Hey, you got to send out the video of JR losing his shit against the Sabres when he threw the water bottle across at the ref." So he ends up putting that one out too. But I looked.
That was a head of hair on me. I had the streaks, the blonde streaks.
Oh my God. And then I sent that to you and Craig, and you're like, that's why they called me Styles, because he had the tongues out. He had the jersey tuck. He had the mock turtleneck, okay, which is legendary. The mock turtleneck is legendary. I tried to pull it off in the minors. And you had the flowing robe or the flowing hair.
Flowing hair, yeah.
The flowing hair, bleach. Was it highlighted, bleach blonde?
It was. Yeah.
Just the tips, or what? Was it just the tips, or was it the whole thing?
No, it was probably three-quarter length. It was at the end where my roots were dark, but everything else was like bleach blonde.
Do you practice for that competition before you enter it, or how are in the All-Star games? How are the skill? Gio, were you in an All-Star game?
No,
it had to have been the year you scored 48.
No, it was Olympic year.
So okay, all right. You went to the Olympics that year, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So that's probably better than the All-Star game. But so JR, how do they select who goes in what event in the All-Star games?
I think just obviously, what your characteristics are when you play, right? You have your guys that are really fast. That's why Mike Gartner was there. Why he did it all the time. Why Connor McDavid does it. Why Ray Bourque was always a dynamite shooter from the point. Messier was always a dynamite shooter. I think maybe only 3 or 4 of us ever have done 4 for 4. Bourque did it twice. I did it twice.
You did it twice.
Once. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And listen, I was a shooter. You don't score 500 and something goals without being a shooter, Brian.
Yep.
Accuracy was one of my traits, and I didn't have the hardest shot, but it was accurate. So, it's just, and they ask you my first All-Star game. They asked me what I wanted to be in, because at that time they didn't really know me as well. But at 20 years old, 21. So, but it just boiled up to that way, and it's hard to do, man. Especially nowadays, they've kind of changed the rules. It's a lot different shooting accuracy competition now. But it's very hard to do.
Do you like the All-Star game? Do you like the way it's done now? Do you think it was
better
back then?
No, I actually like it. It is. The 3-on-3 is more exciting. A lot more goals. You get to see more dynamic plays. I think it was getting to be 5-on-5. Guys really just didn't give a shit. They didn't work hard. They didn't do anything. It was really it was getting to be pretty much a day off for all 750 guys, not just the guys that were in the All-Star game. And people still pay money to go watch these games, and it pisses me off to see guys go half-ass and really don't even give a shit like they did later in the 5-on-5. But I like the 3-on-3. I like the idea. I like the premise. I like the 2 periods. Get her done and get out of there.
Let me ask you this one more question. Sorry, Gio. I have this one more question.
I'm just hanging out here. Don't worry.
No. When we're talking to the All-Star, Gio,
I'm joking.
Gio, you would, if it wasn't Olympic year, you would have been in the All-Star game. How many guys were hungover or drunk come puck drop?
Hungover, yes. I'm the only one that I can remember drinking beer between periods in Toronto. Yeah, in between periods, I went and I threw down 2 or 3 Molson Canadians in between periods. Everybody's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm having a beer. It's fucking All-Star game. It's a celebration time, man. This is our break, right?" But I went on there and I played hard and I worked hard. I think I hit shit in that next period anyway. But,
so maybe it was an accidental hit. So you mentioned Connor McDavid, and I think we got to talk about what's going on with the Oilers. I mean, it's crazy how they had this unbelievable start. Tippett had an interview. I hate to put a date on this on the day that we're recording this, but last night they lost to the Rangers, and he had a very honest. Goaltending wasn't very good. Mistakes were bad. Guys took bad penalties. So I don't know if he's just airing it all out there to try to save his life. But I mean, eventually there will be a coaching change. But how's Connor McDavid feeling? You guys were star players on your team. How's Connor McDavid? Gio, I'll start with you. How's Connor McDavid feeling? I hate to put aside Leon Draisaitl too, because he's a huge part of that. But Connor McDavid's the face of the league.
Well, I mean, listen, these guys want to win, and you get to a point. I'll use Ovi as an example, right? Like scoring goals, dominating the league, being a huge star in this league. But but it still doesn't fulfill the winning. Like, you want to win. You're a competitor. You're in the game. You want to win. And you want to be on a team that's going to compete and going to win. And I think Ovi realized that, hey, it's not about me scoring 50 every year, even though he does, but it's about me winning. And what can I do to help the team win? And unfortunately, it falls on the star players because they're the face. But Draisaitl, McDavid, they're pissed off. They're trying to find answers. They carry that team a lot of the time, and it becomes extremely hard. Now throw in that you're in a Canadian market. You know what I mean? On top of that, you are going to be so scrutinized no matter what happens, no matter what is going on, and you need to find a way to win. So that added pressure just continues to build, and it becomes a drag in the room. And it's not that, like O'Reilly had said, where you lose the fun of the game. It's not that it becomes just such a chore to go to the rink and try to find answers and try to find ways to get back in the winning win column, that it becomes a constant drag mentally and physically every day to go to the rink. And it's extremely hard for those guys to do it day in and day out, and now do it in Edmonton. It just,
especially expectations. And Gio, you're exactly right. The expectations, because that is a championship city. I mean, Gretzky, Messier, Curry, all those guys made that a championship city. So they want that to return with the best player probably ever to play the game, and at least the most talented player with McDavid. But if I'm McDavid or I'm Draisaitl, I'm losing my shit. I am fucking so mad. I'm screaming in that locker room. I'm yelling at my entire team saying, what the fuck, guys? How many more games does Leon and I have to score every single game? Like, they were winning
the stat,
but just the season.
The stat is like every time they're not on the ice, the team's outscored 2-1.
Well, which is why I'm saying, listen, there comes a point when it doesn't matter how good you are, two players aren't going to carry a team all year. You can't. You need everybody pulling their weight. And this team has a terrible reputation of not supporting their top players. I don't know where Nugent Hopkins went. That guy is he's as useful as tits on a bowl. Okay, he's just awful right now. You know, there's nobody that is supporting those two guys game in, game out to allow them to win hockey games. And is that the coach's fault? Is that Tippett's fault to not get them motivated to play the right way or to take accountability? I don't know. That's for the management. But
do you think there's a certain level of that the guys in that room look and they like, we got Connor sitting over there, we got Draisaitl, they'll handle it.
Seems that way.
I can sit back and watch this. I'll have a nice view from the bench. I can go out and get my 10 minutes, and they're going to win us the game.
It goes to show you again what we talked about before about being a smart player and having all the tools. This is another aspect. Like, superstars are superstars for a reason, because they show up every single game. Connor McDavid shows up every single game. Leon Draisaitl shows up every single game. And I don't know what these kids are doing or what these players are doing watching and not following. They always say, you don't have to be a good leader. You don't have to lead. But if you're not a leader, you better be a good follower. And Edmonton has terrible followers. Terrible. I remember, I'm going to tell you guys a story when I was working for that other network that used to do the National Hockey League. And I was watching Edmonton play Detroit. And I think we talked about this, PD, at one point. It was the worst hockey game I have ever seen play by an NHL team. The Edmonton Oilers were so bad. Detroit was the last place team in the league. This is about 3 years ago. Last place team in the league, Detroit, and Detroit was beating them like 3 or 4-1 going into the third period after the second period. I mean, it might have been 4-0. It was the worst performance I've ever seen. It's a waste of my time. I flew to New York to go, away from my family, to go on television, to watch this game and report on this game. And it was the worst 3 hours I've ever seen watching a sporting event. And it was a waste of my time. So I ripped them on television. I ripped them something fierce. The next week was All-Star Game in St. Louis, and I'm sitting on the red carpet getting ready to do interviews with everybody coming down. And I remember Connor McDavid coming down with the player services guy for Edmonton. And I don't even know what his name is, and I don't give a shit anymore. But he looked at me. This is the player services guy, the player guy, who escorts the players to the All-Star Game and make sure they get everywhere. He came up to me, Connor McDavid's right behind him, and he goes, JR, I got to say, you were really unfair with our team on television tonight. That was really unfair what you said. I said, you know what's unfair? Is that I had to sit through that bullshit of watching a pro team play a hockey game and waste 3 hours of my time. That's what's bullshit. And I said, if you don't want me to talk bad about your team, or why don't you tell your team to wake the fuck up and start playing hockey the way it's supposed to be played and have a little bit of a pride in your city and the team that you play for, and start working hard so you start winning, so you start having other people say the right things. Because you know what? I'm the one that said it. You know how many other millions of people were thinking it? I just happened to say it. And if you don't like what I said, that's tough shit. Because that guy right behind you, and I pointed to Connor McDavid, I feel bad for that guy. I feel bad for him. You should apologize to him for the way that the team plays for him. And I said, Connor, I feel bad for you. I'm sorry, but your team sucks, and I hope you get out of it. And I said, sorry. And this was a player services guy. I said, you don't like it? Move to another team. Deal with it, because that's what you're dealing with right now. Yeah. I was so pissed, but it was such a
Did you end up getting an interview with McDavid?
Nope. Nope.
Hard to believe he didn't want to stop and chat for a little bit.
Yeah. No,
so what?
Definitely missed out on that one.
Well, let me ask you guys something, and I'm going to continue to ask this question until they start winning regularly. Now, granted, they could get back in the winning way, and they could make a run. Lately, we've seen teams go through these lulls, and sometimes it's best that they have these lulls now than down the road. But the point is,
dog days. It is still the dog days of the NHL.
So I mean, I'll give a little bit of leniency toward that, but let's just say,
yeah, but Petey, this team, the Edmonton Oilers, can't afford to have these down periods after the number of years that they have sucked and had so many number one picks.
Yeah,
this team can't afford that.
I still think that they're fragile. You know what I mean? They're mentally fragile as an organization, just like the Sabres, right? Like one bad thing snowballs into a disaster because losing has been there for so long that it's so hard to get that out of your room. So hard. Yeah.
Well, you know what's like
you have stretches. You have stretches where you get out of it and you're amazing. But the default, when it's been that way for so long, is when things go wrong, it's not, okay, dig in, we're going to get through this. It's like, oh shit, here we go again. Here we go again. Yeah.
And then they're only leaning on two players to try to get out.
Man.
It's such a great point, Bri. It's such a great point. I was talking with somebody who was involved in the Phoenix, the Arizona organization, and they were talking about Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and he was there his entire career, the captain of the team. And probably the last 2 years, he was god awful. I mean, he was just a shell of himself, of a defenseman. And I said, "What's his problem?" And you know what the guy said to me? He said, he's gotten used to losing. He's gotten accustomed to losing. And when you get accustomed to losing, you don't get pissed off anymore.
Yeah.
And I think you're exactly right. That's a great point by you. It might be in Edmonton. It's in Buffalo. It's definitely in Arizona. It's a hard thing to get out of, man. It's a hard thing to get out of.
It's real hard. And like you said, I touched on it earlier. You go through so many emotions trying to fix it early on, right? So Larson probably went through the gamut. Okay, I got to be a good teammate. I got to pump my teammates up today. And then the next day you come back, you're like, I got to lay into someone. I got to be pissed off. I got to be in hard on someone. And eventually it just becomes like there is no answer for me to help out. And so now I just come in and play the game. I'm not having fun anymore. I just come and do what I'm supposed to do. And it affects your performance. It affects the team mentality. It affects everything involved in it. Like, and it lasts for too long. It lasts for too long.
So this is our mentality. And I'm sure you've seen it because you played in Jersey. You know what it's like to be on a team that is expected to win. Petey, I don't know if that's the case with you in Buffalo, but I'll
we only won a President's Trophy, JR, and we schlocked Philly when you were on it like a shithouse toilet seat. So don't you tell me.
Listen, what's a show without giving you a little fucking ribbing? Anyway, shit. Now I forgot what I was.
You were saying about playing in Jersey and being expected to win.
No, so we were always kind of taught if you're not winning and you're not scoring goals or things aren't going right, make it difficult. Like, make it the game uncomfortable. Work harder. Play more physical. Be pains in the asses. Don't just go out there and try to do the same thing if it's not working and lose again. Sometimes you have to make the game harder for the other team by being angrier, more physical, more intense, maybe better defensively. Look what Pittsburgh's doing this year. But don't just go out there and go through the same motions again. You have to change your mentality sometimes. And when you change that mentality and you maybe do something different to make it harder on another team, sometimes it clicks and it changes and the momentum changes. But I see too many teams just go on and just do the same thing every day, and they don't get pissed off and they don't make the game harder for their opponents. And what are their opponents going to fear? They're like, we're going to beat these guys. They're fucking fragile.
Yeah. I saw it on both ends, JR. I saw it with New Jersey, Montreal. We had great teams that went to the conference finals. So, and I also saw it on Buffalo. Like it's such an extreme that good teams know, whether it's within the game, whether it's in the weekly stretch, the 2-week stretch where you don't have it. It's natural. You're just not going to have it. You're not going to be able to walk through everyone. You're not going to be able to make clean passes all the time. You're not going to get clean looks, and you have to dumb the game down. And it becomes ugly. It becomes boring, but that's how you get yourself out of the rut and stop the momentum going the wrong way. And the quicker you can do that as a team, then you bounce back, whether it's in a game and you just don't have it for that 10, 15 minutes, or you have a shitty second period. How do you stop that? Yeah, you don't keep dangling at the blue line.
Yeah.
You make it hard.
Think about it. But do you think these players think about it these days? I think they make so much money that they leave the rink and it's gone. They totally forget about it, and they don't. I don't think it's as important.
I think it's that. I think it's that for sure. But I also think it's just the skill set on them, that their default, the way they've been taught, is their skill is going to take over the game. And that's not what, in a pinch, when things aren't going good, I don't know, maybe I'm old school that way, that, you know, it's not always just about the skill set. I was shorter. I could skate. I had different tools, good hands around the net, but I had to find ways to create space for myself. And I don't think they know how to do that. I don't think that they think the whole game. I think they just think skill set. If I can dangle around this 2 guys and get a shot on net, I'm doing what I need to for my team. Yeah. I don't know.
Isn't this kind of what John Tortorella was talking about when he said about McDavid and not being able to score and put up points throughout the whole playoffs, where, you know, you talk about changing your game and doing the little things that it takes to win, and not, I mean, maybe you guys.
Yeah, but you don't do that. But you don't say that about Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair point.
You might do it with somebody else, right? But, you know, not Connor McDavid.
Okay. Yeah. I'll tell you, just on what you're talking about, JR, about
maybe Zach Hyman. You could talk about that.
Zach Hyman, yeah. No. When I was in Jersey, I played 1 year in New Jersey, and I came from Buffalo. And I've always said, and I just said it recently in another podcast, I said, if I had spent 5 years, if I was lucky enough to make New Jersey with Lou Lamoriello and spend 5 years there, and then go to another team, I would have played another 5 or 6, not just one more. I didn't realize how unprepared I was for real professionalism until I got to New Jersey. So we had won 9 games in a row in New Jersey, and then we lost the 10th. And I came to the rink, and I think we lost the 10th game by maybe a goal, and I think it might have been in Toronto even. And I come to the rink the next day, and I'm a loosey-goosey guy. I always want to be in a good mood. And I'm like cheery, right? And Colin White, Gio, you know him, comes up. He goes, "We don't do that here. We don't laugh. We lost last." I go, "Fuck, we're 9-1 in our last 10 games. Like there's no music on. I swear somebody died on the way to the rink." Okay, that's what the mood was like. And he's like, "We don't do that here. That's minor league shit." And I'm just kind of like, you're serious? He's like, "Yeah, I'm serious." And that's when I kind of realized, I was like, man, we really think different. Well, we don't. I'm supposed to.
There's a time and a place, right? There's a time and a place. There's a time and a place, right?
But it just goes to show you one game out of 10.
I didn't know the time and the place most of my career, so I can't say that. I used to dance. I used to put a disco ball in the locker room at Philly, turn the lights off, and put a strobe light on the disco ball, and have Todd Fedoruk get his stick and pretend he was playing the bass. I used to sing disco, Saturday Night Fever.
At what point? Before a game?
Yeah, right before the meeting, like at 5:15, right before the 5:30 meeting. And one day, Ed Schneider, the owner of the team, is walking through the locker room and comes by the locker room and sees the lights off and the strobe light going around. Woo! And sees Fridge over there going boom, 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 boom. And I'm doing the dance, doodle dance. And I'm all over the place. And Ed Schneider sneaks into the room and walks behind the door and sits on the chair, on the bench in the locker room and watches me. We didn't see him come in. And we turned the lights back on, and there's Mr. Schneider, the owner of the team. And Fridge is like, "Oh, shit." And he goes, "Guys, I hope you have this much energy on the ice tonight." He goes, "Good performance." And he walked out. Fridge goes, "I'm getting sent down. I'm getting sent down to the minors for sure. I'm going to get sent down to the minors." I had a goal and 2 assists. Fridge had 3 fights that game. We won like 5-2. I said, "See, Fridge, we're good, man. There's no problems." He goes, "Oh, man, I had to fight. I was guilty. The owner was going to send me down because I was playing the bass. I'm never doing that again, JR." Next game, we do it.
You know what? On that note, and then I want to talk about the Rangers, who I think have the number 1 candidate for GM of the year. Tell me about the dance you did in that exhibition game in Vegas. Was that spun? You were over checking on the glass.
Yeah, the glass broke. It was in Vegas, right? And it was at the MGM Grand, and it was a terrible arena. It was old and decrepit, and the glass was old, and the glass broke. And they were having trouble fixing it, whether they didn't have a replacement piece of glass or they couldn't fit a new piece of glass into the dasher. It was taking like 15, 20 minutes. Everybody was getting restless. So I went over there. I'm like, "Boys, let's get it going." It's like, we're trying. And, the Bee Gees came on, "You Should Be Dancing." And I love disco, man. I love music.
Sounds like it.
So I just start moving a little bit on the ice while I'm watching the guys fix it. Still, everybody's kind of meandering. And there was two people in the stands, a guy and a girl, and they started dancing with me right in front of me because I was moving, and they started dancing with me. So I started dancing more. Then couple people started dancing with me. So I'm like, hell, let's just dance because nobody else is happening. Nothing else is going on. It's a preseason game. We're in Vegas. It's one of the entertainment capitals of the world, right? So I start dancing, screwed. I turned around, went to center ice dancing, and right in front of Joe Sakic. Joe Sakic laughed his ass off. Thought it was one of the funniest things he's ever seen. And by the way, nobody else will ever do this ever again. But it was almost a view out of Slapshot, but I kept my gear on. But what was really crazy is I got so much shit from my GM after the season was over. He was like, "That was the most embarrassing thing that I've ever seen." I'm like, I don't give a shit what you thought, if it was embarrassing or not. That wasn't you on the ice. Because he was all, the old mentality, right? No smiling, no fun, no.
Who was it? Who was the GM?
Is it Lombardi? What's his name?
He was that influential on you, eh?
You know what? It's concussions, man. It's my concussions.
What year was that? I'm going to look him up right now.
It was me jumping out of the way, JR, on that hit. It sent your memory to shit.
Yeah, exactly. It was 2006. So,
all right, I'm going to look that up right now.
Dean Lombardi.
Dean Lombardi, yes.
Yeah.
Dean Lombardi, yeah. And I love Dean. Dean's a great friend of mine, always has been since I was a little kid. But he was just very disappointed with me. And listen, I didn't lose any sleep. I thought it was great.
He's Lou-like, isn't he? I think Dean was like Lou Lamoriello-ish, right?
Yes.
That was his like mentor or whatever. So
yep, 100%.
I can see that.
Yep. Yeah, very much like that. Yeah.
So we talked about the Oilers losing to the Rangers, and I look at where the Rangers are in the standings right now. They didn't make a ton of moves, but they brought in Sammy Blais, Ryan Reeves, and is it Blake Coleman they brought in from Tampa Bay? Is Chris Drury general manager of the year right now with the turnaround that the Rangers are having?
I think you got to think about it for sure. I mean, nobody looks at the Rangers as Stanley Cup contenders, yet game in, game out, they put up points. They put the puck in the net. They're a fun team to watch. I mean, Panarin is arguably one of the most fun players to watch in the National Hockey League. Zibanejad is
Barclay Goodrow, not Blake Coleman. Wrong Tampa Bay player. Sorry, my for concussions too.
Zibanejad is a lot of fun to watch. I think they are. I would have to think you got to put him in the running for that for sure. And I love Chris Drury. You want to talk about one of the smartest guys, hockey minds that are out there. Chris Drury knows the game. Same as Billy Guerin in Minnesota. Those two have changed their teams.
There's
more than
another
anybody,
one too, because no one put much stock in Minnesota this year having a good year.
No, they again getting that kid Kaprizov signed and in that lineup again just gives that team so much a different look. What a great player! What a great team! Fun team to watch.
I think the Rangers go underrated with Gallant. I think the hire of Gallant. I love him.
Great point. Great point.
I had him in Montreal as an assistant coach. He was one of the best coaches I've ever had. And you see what he did in Vegas and whatnot. It's him, man. Like I love him. I think he's a huge piece to that Ranger team. And no disrespect to the players, because they're going out doing this stuff. I'm well aware of the coach's role, but I think he's just an awesome guy to have at the helm over there.
They say that he's a great young players coach, that he's great for young players. He gives them a lot of confidence and makes them feel good about themselves. That's a good quality to have, especially with how young some of these players are in this league. I love Gallant. He's such a great guy. He deserves. I mean, I thought he got unfairly fired a couple times, but I'm glad to see he's really doing well. It's a great point by you in New York. Great point.
A lot of love for the Americans on here today, but I got to just throw one more in there. How about Chris Kreider, 20 goals already?
Awesome. Boy, that guy last 2 years has changed his whole mentality on the ice. That guy has taken and he doesn't get the accolades that he should. But here's a guy who a couple years ago did nothing for me and was almost again that all the tools, no toolbox. But he found his toolbox.
Yeah, I was going to say that, JR. I was going to say that he's a BC kid too, BC grad, or I don't know if he grad, but BC kid. And that I'll forever be a little disappointed because he ran Price in the conference finals.
He doing Blade first.
Yeah, I heard Price. That was our chance to win a cup in Montreal for sure. We had a team that could have.
You think that was on purpose?
Listen, I don't know him. I've met him a few times. I don't know him well enough to know, but I've heard he's not the sharpest of guys, right? So it could have just it could have just been that he was out of control, and like you were saying, like he's someone that's finally putting it together. He was probably just out of control, young in the league, just going hard to the net, and and took him out. Like so, I think he has changed the game. I think he's added some of that smarts to it. And it's paying off for him for sure. But that's
awesome. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, he's definitely has changed his game and is more consistent now. Consistency is what's made him that much better for sure.
Off topic here, and probably be our last topic of discussion today, unless JR there's something you wanna go on a roll about. But because we got a lot of feedback on our last episode a couple weeks ago.
Oh, wasn't that funny? Listening to somebody, did you see some of my return comments on Twitter?
I couldn't. You know what? It was like, here are people that don't normally get responses from guys like JR, and JR is just lighting them up. Like, anyway.
I lit up a couple of those people. I hope for Christmas you get a box of tissues and a teddy bear. Merry Christmas. Oh, can I say that to you? Yeah. See you later.
Yeah. Well, we feel free to comment on the video that I threw out the other day. But on another note, Antonio Brown, I know you follow all sports. I know you follow football. I know you probably saw what happened. I mean, when you come to hear about what happened with Antonio Brown and how, Arians told him to get back in the game and he had been hurt and basically said, if you're not going to play, get the fuck out of here. And he goes and he doesn't help matters by the antics afterwards. And I'm concerned about his well-being mentally.
Yeah.
But
me too.
For me, the conversation is, now that we know all that, isn't the story of sending players back in or expecting players to play hurt? I know you guys probably did it a ton, but aren't we starting or trying to get away from that a little bit in sports? And is this a bad look for Tampa Bay and I guess sports in general when we're telling players, whether it's a concussion, whether it's an ankle injury or anything else in between, to get back in and play?
I'll let Brian start this one. I'll come in after.
I mean, it's hard, right? Like it's so new, Petey. I think more has to come out. But yes, I think where it's gone in the recognition of injuries for players, and listen, we all dealt with it, right? Like I took a puck to the face, 9 facial fractures, ended up having 4 plates and screws in my face, and I came down to morning skate the day after that happened, and Pat Burns was like, you ready to go? Face is swollen out to here. Like, it's a back-to-back game. So I think all that is great for the athlete, for the person, especially for after sport, right? Now, with that being said, Antonio Brown, if he's clearly had some issues, he's clearly, hopefully, not too far mentally gone, in the sense that he's too unhealthy mentally. If he has spun this and turned it back on the team that he really had an injury and it wasn't, then that's on him. If he had an injury, he was missing stuff, he was out, he was not expected to play, or he gave the expectation that he was not ready to go, then it's completely on the Tampa Bay Bucks. Like, you can't force a guy to go into
Ian Rappaport did say that he was even questionable for the game. So
then it's on the. It needs to be. It shouldn't be done on the sidelines. That needs to be done before the game, in the locker room. That needs to be. Are you ready to go? If you're not ready to go, don't dress. If you're not ready to go, don't come on the sideline. Don't dress. You're just like everyone else, right? So that's hurt. That had to have happened before, not mid-game.
I totally agree with you, and I totally think that they mishandled it all the way around. And I think a lot what's happening in pro sports is a lot of injuries are being mishandled. We saw what happened with Jack Eichel. It's cost him a whole year. It's different nowadays. A lot of these guys are making millions of dollars. There's a lot of pressure. If they don't feel ready to go and they're very adamant about not playing, I can see the snappage happening and the pressure of having to play. And my only issue is the way that Antonio Brown decides and makes his decisions to show his opinions is 100% a problem and is concerning. Whether it's his personal life, sitting in front of his house, yelling at cops and yelling at his baby mamas and saying obscene things and causing a stir, whether it's leaving a team on the sidelines, these decisions lead to something more mentally. Now, this guy's had 9 lives. He's had more lives than anybody I can remember in football. And there's no gratitude in this man. There's no gratitude. There's no gratitude in thinking what Tom Brady has done to support this man on 2 different teams. And he only thinks about himself. And when he walked off and he did that right in front of everybody, he only thought of himself. He didn't think of all the second chances that he's gotten. Now, is that a mental condition? Is this one of these mental, or is he just have that big of an ego and he thinks he's so fucking great that maybe, he is the gremlin. He thinks he is, or he is God in his own mind. But that again, I think is another mental illness that I think that he deals with, and it's maybe a different kind of mental illness. But that was totally unfair of the Bucks, to Tom Brady, to the fans of Tampa. It didn't need to happen, and I think both parties should take a little bit of responsibility for that. More Antonio Brown, but Brian, you're exactly right. That issue should have been dealt with in the locker room and not put into that situation, especially knowing the Bucks were going to the playoffs anyway. It wasn't a make or break game for them to go to the playoffs, I don't believe. So why even risk it?
Well, apparently he left like $1 million on the table in bonuses that were very, very achievable in the next.
He doesn't care. He's a rapper now. He's got his own rap songs.
He's got his own label. He's got his own label, doesn't he?
But he didn't pay his chef, and that's who outed him about the fake vaccination card. That's the other thing you left out, the fake vaccination card. And if you recall, when he was leaving Pittsburgh, I think the Bills were trying to trade for him, and then he went on like social media and was said something like, "I'm not going to Buffalo," or "the rumors aren't true." And then in Hard Knocks, he had the whole issue where, remember where he burnt his feet on like the cryo chamber or something like that? His feet were all like peeling apart. And then the last thing he did was, and then before that, he was putting up the fight about the helmet. Do you remember the helmet situation that he had when he was with the Raiders? Anyway, it's just too much.
It's just too much, I mean, there comes a point when you're going to be out of lives, and you're going to be out of opportunities. And the fact that he just doesn't have any gratitude towards these second chances that he has, and he does something of that nature, it bothers me. By the way, didn't surprise me, but I think it bothered me. I think it bothered a lot of people. But I do hope if he does have mental problems and mental illness, that he tries to address it, or at least somebody helps him try to address it, because I will never deny mental illness ever again in this world.
Well, the thing is that, in regard to that, and I'll end it at this unless Gio wants to add something. He needs to want to have help, but it's whether or not he has the mental capacity to know that he needs help. That's the part that scares me the most, is that, so many times, like we had Ryan Leaf on one of our last episodes, and he said, from the standpoint of, even John Elway called him. And I remember saying, well, what did he say? How come John Elway couldn't get through to you? Like John Elway, he said, nobody could have got through to me. I wasn't interested in hearing what anybody else had to say. I thought I had all the answers. I thought I knew everything. And that's basically as simple as that. So I don't even know if Antonio Brown has the mental capacity to be able to recognize that he has an issue going on. He might think that what he's doing is totally normal. I don't know. But what I do know is,
by the way, I would not bet against what you just said. I would bet with you on that one.
Yeah,
for sure.
Does he get another? Does he get another
before, Petey? Unless someone's ready for the help, they're not getting it. So
that's right. Yeah,
it's on the person.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing. That's the thing is Tom Brady dragged him to help. Tom Brady dragged Antonio Brown and put him in his house. Put a roof over his head, gave him a team to play for. Supported him. Like, how does Tom Brady feel watching that happen? I mean, I would think that the disappointment in him is, or at least the concern, would be off the charts.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, I look forward to next week. Anything else to add, Gio? You got anything?
I got nothing, buddy. It was nice to be on with JR.
Well, then you have to come on.
Thanks, man. Thanks,
you have to come on with us next week.
Awesome.
Well, you keep us separated, right? Like I have the show without
one of the best American captains of all time, right?
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. We got We had a treat today. And next week we got Riv back with a bum knee and COVID.
Awesome stuff. Thanks, JR. That's a wrap on another episode of After the Whistle. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, After the Whistle, and at Craig Rivet 52, at the Instigator 76. And you can find us, as you already know, on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, and anywhere else where you can get your podcasts. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to spread the word.